Hello, everybody. Hi, Chris.
Hello.
We have been away for a few days. Well, quite a few, 10, 11 days.
Few
We
days.
have been, we went to Hungary to attend to our village retreat and to our flat in Budapest.
And to
So,
to and to visit a friend who's was my sort of surrogate mother who had pneumonia.
right. So we've been very busy there, cleaning, gardening, going, socializing, painting a ceiling and walls, and yeah. So we didn't really have any time to do these podcasts, but now we're back. And actually, this topic came about. The idea of this topic came about one evening while we were having our meal, our supper. And as we were sitting there having a simple meal, I think it
Happy.
was cabbage, cabbage with tomatoes. Very simple meal, but very tasty. So we were sitting there eating that cabbage and enjoying the special thing that this simple meal was in our newly decorated kitchen, enjoying a beautiful, very tasty. I can't even begin to tell you how good palinka, which is the Hungarian alcohol made from fruit. And we were just reflecting on how blessed we were to be enjoying these simple things, but very good and loving them. And as Chris was saying, oh, how amazing this is, I thought, oh, you sound like an Epicurean or an Epicurean. We're turning, Chris, we both are turning into these Epicureans. And he said, what is that? And today we're going to tell you a little bit more because my idea, um, uh, why I said it was because my association with Epicureanism or Epicurism, I don't know how the English word would be, is for someone who likes the pleasures of simple things like good food, good alcohol, good wine, good like simple but kind of tasty things and enjoying the senses. And then we said, okay, let's go and check what does Wikipedia say about Epicurus. And the more we learned about him, the more we were finding very many similarities with him, between him and us. And so we're going to tell you a little bit more about him today. Maybe we will inspire you to go and search him up and see whether you like his philosophy of life or not. And the title came from another meditation that Chris mentioned. He said he has this app and it gives him all sorts of reflections for the day. And by the way, we have some of these in our Discord server, so subscribe, go and find the link for the Discord and come and join us in there. Um, so happiness is not to be pursued, which will be a very controversial idea maybe to some, because everybody says, "Oh, let's pursue happiness," and we actually have been guilty of this ourselves. Let's go find happiness. It's not to be pursued and chased and um, worked hard on. It gets born in the simple, in the enjoyment of what did you say, Chris? The enjoyment of simple things and being grateful for what you have
Yeah,
in the
but gratefulness
moment. Gratefulness.
of things. Yeah, whether whether they be lessons through pain and difficult times, or whether they be, and that's only our interpretation that it's bad or difficult. It's it just strives us. It helps us strive to learn, or when we're enjoying, like we were, this cabbage dish, and just amazed really the how the appreciation of such a simple meal brings happiness. It just does, like it's not rocket science. It's just
And so the appreciation of simple things. So if we go back to Epicurus' philosophy, um, he is known for, well, what he was teaching and his followers were doing was they were enjoying the simple things in life, say simple food, um, simple drinks, maybe. I don't know what else could it be. Simple circumstances, simple arrangements of events, simple homes, simple simplicity in general. And also the openness here comes from, is that how you spell openness?
yeah. What is this?
It looks very strange with double N's and double S's. I hope it's correct. But he was also encouraging people to discuss of a wide variety of topics. There was nothing off limits. And this is what openness here stands for. And actually, the more we learned about Epicurus, the more we tended to kind of associate ourselves with him. So, oh, they're just like us. We're discussing a wide variety of
Yeah,
topics.
but the openness, rather like, and it's interesting how just sort of like minds gravitate towards similar ideologies, and like Link for Growth, which is was always founded on the fact that conversations should be able to be had for no cost or relatively little cost, not like paying for a network membership or something, but literally for the price of a cup of coffee, you can go and meet other local people, and nobody is excluded from that. Like it's open literally to all and sundry, whether you have money, don't have money. It doesn't really matter what your background is, what race or creed you are. The idea is that anybody who chooses to want to like look at life from a more simple and open perspective can do so. And that was pretty much what he was doing then, 300 AD or 200 AD or whatever it was. 340. Oh no, hang on. Epicurus 341 to 270 BC, it says it here.
Oh, so that's long, long before Christianity.
Yeah. I mean, I think his ideas sort of carried on going until Christianity started, and when they started to get a little bit uppity about what he was talking about.
Well, he was a Greek philosopher, so in those days, I was the only time I actually learned about there being slaves in Greece in those days was from a friend of ours who wrote a book, and it's up to be published soon. Hopefully, we'll be able to have access to it. But there was mentioned there the fact that there were lots of slaves, and it was usually men that were slaves, which was strange. To me, was the first time I heard about it. So slavery is a very old phenomenon. It's not nowadays or very recent thing. So in those days, women also,
We're all slaves. We all become slaves to money. Like this is the second
yeah,
issue, but it's like
yeah,
it's been reworked such that we don't even know we're slaves. That's the issue. That's one of the issues. But
yeah.
and
Well,
this,
he was his the thing was his gathering. So I don't know how he did his conversations, but he was open to women, which was unheard of. Women were considered to be like, no, 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 go, go. You're not capable of thinking about philosophy. You're not clever enough. You're dumb. Oh, by the way, today's the 8th of March. Happy Women's International Women's Day.
oh, so
Um,
there must be more than one of those. They seem to come around very often.
so women were allowed in these open conversations and also slaves of any description. So women, slaves, boys, anybody could join in and talk about this for a wide variety of topics. And one of them was actually how they talked about fear and the absence of pain. So a simple life that is he was preaching that well, preaching is not the word, or his philosophy was based on the fact that you shouldn't be scared of anything. You shouldn't be the pain is doesn't exist. It's just your perception, so you can be free of pain. And the whole thing came out of this empiricism idea that there's only the six senses, or the five, or I don't know how many senses, but the main senses, the five senses. There's only them. What you see, what you feel with your fingers, what you can touch, what you can smell, taste, and hear, and that's it. And stop making life too complicated because it isn't. And in those days, the Greek gods were like Mars and what was this big, the main one,
Sun
um,
God and
the sun god, I've forgotten their names now. They were all considered to be living in that mountain, on top of the mountain, Olympus, and people thought that they were involved in their lives and they were controlling everything. Well, Epicurus was the first one to say, no, 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 they have nothing to do with us. They live there. We are just us, and don't be afraid. The life, there's no need to be scared of dying. That's my next one. I think I'm jumping through my through my through my banners all over the place. But anyway, death not to be feared because um, life just stops. That's it.
when you
So
die,
there's nothing.
your soul dies, and that's it.
When you die, you die. That's it. So go enjoy your life. Stop being scared. Um, Stop avoiding. There's no need for pain. Da 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 da. And that's how in the Middle Ages and in Bulgarian, when I was learning about him, the meaning was the metaphor was like somebody who enjoys themselves. They enjoy their senses, especially their taste, because they eat and drink a lot. Because it was um, that's the meaning that came through the ages to us. That is, if somebody follows this type of philosophy, they just indulge in tasty
Well,
food and beverages.
I think that
Uh,
concept of enjoying food and it kind of gets split into kind of you must be like some kind of like glutton or drunkard or whore or some kind of person who enjoys like those types of sex activities and stuff. Well, like we have these senses and each of those senses that talk about taste and smell and touch and sight and hearing. Like if it comes back to a little bit to Zen, and he probably had some influence from that by the sounds of it. That what are we really if we are not a receptacle for receiving information from our senses? That's like in terms of a philosophy, you can't really argue about it because we receive our information from our senses, and then what happens is the brain tries to make sense of it. But the trouble is that we overwork it.
mm,
We start to think to ourselves, oh, that person is doing this because they want us to be upset or they want to take advantage or whatever it happens to be. But the reality is that they're not doing it to do that. They're doing it because their programming throughout their life is cause and effect leads them to do those things. And I think what happens is we start to overthink things. And certainly in today's world, we're really, really overthinking. So I think a return to a simple way of life is not just in terms of food and drink and like some of the things in terms of opening up conversation and not it also means don't overdo it with the thinking. Like if I see a yellow plant, I can compare it, the yellowness, with another plant, but I can't say this yellow plant is better than that yellow plant. Oh, well, it's better because it grows nicer here. Yeah, but maybe the circumstance, the cause and effect of where you've put it means it likes it more, and consequently it's more yellow or whatever, and more prolific.
More green, or yeah.
Yeah, but it isn't better than any other plant, and the same is true of human beings. Of course, is that no one's better. They are what they are, and if they want to fill themselves up with rubbish, not food, I mean rubbish in terms of thinking, then so be it. But that causes all sorts of stress and worry and concern, and it just goes on. So I think the idea of keeping it nice and simple applies to that too, as well as everything else about what we do in our lives. And so I think this empiricism has got legs, like in terms of it's a good way of thinking about things. No one's more important than anybody else, which is why he opened it up to all type of people from different walks of life. It's a good thing, because how do you know what it's like to be a slave if you're not a slave? I think even today we don't, like, people are going around obeying instructions from all sorts of authorities without questioning, why am I obeying? Why am I doing what these people tell me? Oh, it's because my mum and dad did, and their grandparents did. And it's like this whole obeying of things. If you don't obey, you're not being dissenting, you're just questioning. When I think we're not doing enough of it these days. And this guy Epicurus, right? He was probably a bit ahead of his time. And then, of course, when Christianity came along, and he's saying, "Oh, when you die, and that's the end of it." And then the Christians would go, well, "Hang on a minute, that's not working for us," and they started to change. I can probably shut down everything about him, because he was considered to be some kind of Philistine, probably, who was unable to comprehend the finer qualities of Christianity. And all that is just a different idea, isn't it? It's just a different idea. And then he got resurrected, as it were, a little bit during the Middle Ages, when people started to appreciate his teachings were probably quite relevant, really. And doesn't, okay, maybe you have one or two things that you don't agree with, but on the whole, 70% or 80% of what he was saying led to people having improved quality of life. Well, how's that a bad thing when most people are struggling these days? I use the word most, because there's very few people without stress and without worry these days. Very few people. You bump into them, they're all worried about something. You walk down the street and you hear behind the scenes of people. I suspect there's all sorts of stuff going on that we don't know about. Whether that's self-inflicted or otherwise, we don't know. But it is probably all self-inflicted in the end.
So, if you like what we're talking about, make sure to subscribe to the channel. We are like Epicurus, discussing all sorts of different varieties of topics. So today we're talking Greek philosophy, how it applies to our day nowadays, so many years later. But on other occasions, we have talked about all sorts of things. So we tend to kind of associate ourselves these days. The more we learn about Epicurus, the more we think we were like him, enjoying the simple cabbage dish and drinking the tasty beverage, and being grateful for what we had.
Yeah, I mean, reading through a bit more about his stuff. He said Epicurus maintained that the senses never deceive humans, but that the senses can be misinterpreted.
Ah,
And he had this idea of a taraxia, and a taraxia was an idea of. He says Epicurus asserted that philosophy's purpose is to attain as well as to help others attain happy, eudaimonic, tranquil lives characterized by ataraxia, which was peace and freedom from fear, and aponia, the absence of pain.
it's this banner here.
He said he advocated that people were best able to pursue philosophy by living a self-sufficient life surrounded by friends. Well, hang on a minute, isn't that what we're trying to do here?
That's communities, yeah, community building.
It's
Surrounded by friends, being happy together in a like-minded group of people.
growing your own food, doing simple things. He said that he taught that the root of all human neurosis is death denial. I don't know how people could deny death is there. It's coming, isn't it? And the tendency for human beings to assume that death will be horrific and painful, which he claimed causes unnecessary anxiety, selfish, self-protective behaviours, and hypocrisy.
Well, that the opposite of that would be this: to not be fearful of it. Mm.
Yeah, I think it's I think that's a fairly reasonable set of things to be trying to do, and so yeah.
The good guy. He obviously didn't know much about physics and the discoveries of quantum physics in those days. That was far away from his time. We don't even know exactly how matter is created nowadays, but he thought it was made by atoms, small particles called atoms. We're not sure about that yet these days. We're
Well, I mean,
thinking maybe there's more to that. There's smaller things than atoms, but in those days it was still good. Like he had this idea.
yeah, I mean, I think the idea of atoms may have meant that what we call an atom, he was referring to it as something much smaller than an atom. You know, when we've got things like quarks and all sorts of bits and pieces that we've now got the capability to detect and label, but quantum physics, where everything comes from the void and nothing is certain, and things change dependent on what else is going on, cause and effect. So they don't,
Mm,
not because it's going in one direction it stays. It could be influenced by either the future or the past. It's a real complicated thing, this quantum physics. I read a book on it, and woof, it was a bit of a mind bender, to be honest. I read chapters like 4 or 5 times because I just didn't know what I'd just read.
words.
It together, it was like, I question how someone could write this. Must have been on Parlinka.
Oh well.
There we go. So yeah,
Yeah. So have a discussion. Have a read through, find a little bit more about Epicurus. You might start to actually like his teachings. So we suggest.
okay.
I don't want to sound like the English translator on the Hungarian trains, who's very authoritative, telling you what to do. So I am not telling you what to do. If you want to do that, feel free. But if not, that's fine too.
Yeah, he's a good guy. He sounds like he's the kind of guy who would have gone along and appreciated.
Oh, sorry, Mark. I've got a bit of a cough going on. Right. So thank you for watching, guys, and don't forget to subscribe.
Okay, bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.